What's up, Previews World? Troy Jeffrey Allen here with PreviewsWorld.com, and welcome back to Comic Talk. We took a little hiatus last week, but now we're going to try something a little bit different. So, selfishly, I asked Anna, Mia, and Ashton, who normally host Comic Talk, what creators specifically would they like to talk to, like week in and week out? And so, what we're going to do now is we're going to divvy up the Comic Talk responsibilities. And full bias here, we're going to talk to the creators that we know and love, and hopefully you know and love as well, and hopefully you feel the excitement in the air from us talking to the creators that we find to be our favorites. And it just so happens that one of our favorites this week is a major creator. You know him, of course, from Deadpool, right? Everybody knows him from Deadpool, but he's also got a book out this week, or last week, I'm sorry, 2 weeks ago, from IDW called Snake Eyes Dead Game. And hey, no more introduction, guys. I got Rob Liefeld in the room. What's up, Rob?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me. Very exciting. Oh, you can see my messy desk behind me. I love it.
That's okay. That's all right. That means you've been working. That's all right. Not a problem.
Buddy, all the time.
What do you got back there? It's like you got a couple of models and some other stuff.
So there's a brand new Deadpool bust right there on my desk. That's where I draw. And then on my bulletin board is just a lot of family pics and cartoons. Obviously, the movie poster of Deadpool 1. Another sideshow Deadpool right there.
Nice.
And then there is a killer. People don't even know that there's a Strife statue, but Strife is a character that was introduced in New Mutants 87 along with Cable and Bowen Studios. I think that's one of the last ones they did. It was funny before Deadpool 2 when Tim Miller was still on the movie. He's like, "Hey man, I don't know how we could ever pull off that Strife costume, man. I got to be honest. It's I've been looking it over, and I don't think we're ever gonna." And he was a huge Bowen statue guy, and I said, "Tim, what are you talking about? There's a killer statue of Strife. You need to look at it." He's like, "Get the hell out of here!" And I'm like, "No." And he obviously was in his studio physically at the time in Santa Monica, and I had him Google it up. I couldn't give him my studio, my statue at the time, but anyway, he Googled it up and he goes, "Hot damn, that looks hot." And I'm like, "Yeah, so stop telling me you can't pull that off. Once it's a statue, it can be anything." Okay.
Right. Once it enters the third dimension, it can be adaptable. Why not?
Right. Just make it walk. Okay. That's it.
Oh, absolutely. So Rob, I'm going to embarrass you for a second, right? Like, I remember the first time I picked up New Mutants 98. It was the first comic book I ever picked up by you. And like, yeah, it just immediately caught me. Of course, it's got that killer cover with like Deadpool and all the other characters on the cover. And then I didn't see anything for a while, for a couple of months, and then X-Force #1 dropped, and I've been a fan ever since. So
thank you, sir. I look, young Rob Liefeld thanks you, old Rob Liefeld thanks you. We are so thankful.
Love it. And we're going to talk a little bit about young Rob Liefeld, right? But we're going to talk about, but we're going to kick things off first with 2020 Rob Liefeld, right? So you had a book that just came out this past month, and it's part of I believe, 5-issue miniseries called Snake Eyes Dead Game, right? And it's coming out from IDW. Now, this is a G.I. Joe book. Like, this is a big franchise. And it kind of feels like a match made in heaven. For some reason, this feels like you should have been doing this a long time ago. So I wanted to ask you, how did you get involved with G.I. Joe?
Well, okay, so G.I. Joe, this entire franchise had a huge impact on my childhood. G.I. Joe was my very, very favorite, very first toy. I call it my first love. The G.I. Joe toys that were coming out in the mid-'70s, which is when young Robbie Liefeld was 7 and 8 years old. Kung Fu Grip G.I. Joe, Eagle Eye G.I. Joe. He'd become part of an adventure team. Anyway, I was a huge fan. Those were the toys that I completely, consumed and took everywhere. The park, the sandbox, in the car with me. Again, he had become like an adventure team figure because they had really de-emphasized the military aspect because of the Vietnam era war. So we're talking 50 years ago, or just around that. But when they came back and exploded in 83, 84, with the new, what I call the Reagan era, toys.
The real American hero.
Snake Eyes was right there. He's the first guy that I saw that had a pistol and a katana. And I had seen my fair share of samurai films, of kung fu cinema. I had seen military movies. I had just never seen anything like him, the way he moved, his attitude. He's a soldier, but he's a samurai. He's a ninja. He's a soldier. all mashed up in one. And again, so I made sure I had a guy who had guns and swords as well. I mean, don't, let's put a visor on him and call him Snake Eyes. So anyway, so I have always been a huge fan. So Chris Rile now departed from IDW, but he has to be mentioned because he and I have a long-lasting friendship. And he had called me last spring when I had a book called Major X coming out, and he asked me if I would be interested in making G.I. Joe my next project. And, as things would work out, that fit right into my schedule. I had a story. I said, look, Chris, I want to be able to tell my story and tell me if this can be approved or not. Otherwise, I'm going to move on. There's obviously been a ton of great G.I. Joe and Cobra stories, and I mean, so many over the years. So I had a very specific idea of what I would do if given the opportunity. Same day approval from Hasbro. The Hasbro guys have always been friendly and big fans of mine. I mean, again, I don't need to remind you that across the offices, Hasbro also makes all these Marvel figures, and the Rob Liefeld wing of the X-Men office has made them some serious bankola. Serious bankola. I mean, another. This is a 2-pack that came out last year
on a scooter.
Oh, I just dropped it. I just dropped Dogpool, everybody. That's okay because I have 10 of these. So anyway, so Hasbro gave me the quick approval, and I was off to the races, and I was able to do what I set out to do in regards to how I would approach a G.I. Joe and a Snake Eye series. And here's the deal, man. You got to understand, G.I. Joe was not in the best scenario. There's a reason my phone rang. I'm really good at kind of flipping houses, kind of doing fixer-uppers. I have been since Hawk and Dove, since New Mutants. I love the challenge of taking maybe something that has been stalled out and kind of getting it revved up and back on the track. And G.I. Joe had kind of lost its commercial appeal across the board. And Chris literally was like, we want you to try and light a fire. And I'm excited. I'm excited. The Dead Game, now a few weeks out, has done extremely well. We sold out. We quadrupled the numbers. And so I'm excited to share the next chapter with people in the coming weeks.
Nice. And actually, I should point out, it just went to a second printing that I think is going to drop in September for issue 1. So if you guys have missed out on it, you're going to have a second opportunity to pick it up and definitely check it out. Actually, I'm curious. You mentioned the approval process for Hasbro. Like you said, that went by pretty quickly. But what is that like? Like, I'd imagine there's a lot of things that they have to check off to give you the okay.
The great thing, I'm going to tell you right now, Hasbro has a really simple submission process. I mean, they get back to you extremely fast. For issue 2, for example, which I introduce more new characters, and so I had to, before I get married to these characters, I floated the name and the design through the system, and again, within 90 minutes, I had an approval.
Oh wow,
they're great. So my editor on G.I. Joe, John Barber, he was my editor years back over at Marvel when I did the sequel to Heroes Reborn called Onslaught Reborn. Then he was the editor of an as yet unseen Marvel project called Kill Raven that I did with Robert Kirkman. So John Barber and I have worked together on many years with the project. So he has been at IDW now for many years, relocated out here in Southern California. It's just down the road in San Diego where IDW is located. So he is, while Chris, the publisher of IDW at the time, was key in grabbing me, John and I work day to day, hand in hand, and he has a great relationship with Hasbro, as of course you would have to have. And so those approvals are really fast. I mean, along with the new villains, the new what do you call it, threats and consequences that we have the Joe team up against. I mean, look, Snake Eyes Dead Game is very much a story about the weapons of war, and Snake Eyes himself realizing that his very existence, he is a weapon of war. But there is a Sword of the Dead that is kind of our MacGuffin that everybody wants, because in the proper hands it can do terrible things. But it has failed in the past. The Sword of the Dead has come up against other mythological weapons of war. And there we go. Thor is in a G.I. Joe comic. And that there is Thor, there is Mjolnir. He says Mjolnir, and they can tell you I was sweating that up until the printing. I thought, man, are they going to change their mind while it's the printer? But we obviously had to fashion a very different looking Thor, a very different looking Mjolnir. But that's in my, I call it my Peter Jackson kind of prelude wraparounds, the way he would entice us when he was doing Lord of the Rings. And I almost love those more than I love the main movie. So those actually tell a tale at the beginning of the Snake Eyes comics as kind of where our ultimate, the Sword of the Dead has been and what it's been up against, and kind of gives us a roadmap. And so getting approval to have Thor in a G.I. Joe comic, to have Mjolnir used, was, again, a submission process. And thankfully, so far, I've cleared them all. I wish I could tell you that there was something, that I'd come up against, but no, everything's been great. Hasbro's been great, and so far the results have been great. And I'm gonna keep, I love projecting the positive effects. And the week after Dead Game came out, they reprinted Larry Hama's infamous, very celebrated silent issue of G.I. Joe. And I had so many retailers say that they moved quadruple the amount of that book because of the excitement around Dead Game. So again, I'm protecting my childhood. When G.I. Joe kind of, it hasn't really been a prominent, character. The characters haven't been prominent in the culture, especially during this wave of Marvel versus DC for your cinematic, viewing pleasure that has occurred the last 10 years. So being able to be part of the team that kind of brings the Joe characters back, into the spotlight. And we're also accompanied by these really great new toys that are hitting the shelves the same time that the comic is. They don't have anything. They don't have a shared experience, but at least they're, they stepped up with the comics. They stepped up with the toys. I know that the movie was supposed to come out this year, but it's been moved. I haven't seen a single frame. I've gotten to know I've gotten to know Henry Golding, who is actually playing Snake Eyes through it. So one day you wake up and you're drawing Snake Eyes, and Snake Eyes is liking your posts, and there's like, whoa, this is awesome. So Henry's a sweet guy, and I know that they have a lot of confidence in that. So, by this time next year, I believe, the G.I. Joe brand is going to be pumped.
Good. And hopefully we get to see that movie. I actually forgot that there was a movie just because everything's been postponed. So that's pretty wild.
I'm telling you, man, they went ahead and greenlit another movie on the back of it. I'm certain that it's going to deliver.
Okay, nice. So actually, let me ask you this: why Snake Eyes? What about Snake Eyes made him right for this particular story?
Well, again, going back to when I was a kid, and people ask all the time, like, what makes something cool? And if I can digress really quickly to the first time I just encountered, like, whoa, cool, the cool connection. And people forget that when something looks cool, it immediately gets your attention and probably some of your affection if you are a young, boy seeking action, adventure, sci-fi. Whether it's Darth Vader coming through the smoke on the rebel ship, stepping over bodies, flanked by the stormtroopers, and that music accompanying him, and you're like, oh my gosh, who is this black knight in space? But the first time I encountered it was on the back of the Star Wars toys, again, because I was a child in the 70s. I was 9 years old when Star Wars came out. And when they, on their second wave of toys, put forth the mail-in for Boba Fett, where you got proof of purchase, so you cut up your action figure, the cardboard that it came, encased in, and you sent out, I don't know, maybe 4 proof of purchases to Kenner, and they would mail you this character called Boba Fett. All you got was a name and a visual. And let me tell you, that was a powerful name and a powerful visual. I stared at Boba Fett, and I have told this story numerous times. I would run home, from school, and the first thing I'd pull down that mailbox in the hopes that my Boba Fett was there. And you do not even understand the feeling that I had when that one fateful afternoon post-school running home, is this going to be the day? The other 79 days were not the day. And I opened it, and there's basically the most boring white cardboard box that looked like a tube of toothpaste would be in it. It's like, wait, this unspectacular box, it says from Rob Liefeld, it says to Rob Liefeld from Kenner. Oh my gosh, dude, pulled it out. There's Boba Fett. Didn't know anything about him. Knew that he was cool. Knew that he had a rocket on his back. Knew that he had killer armor. And let me tell you something. When I went and saw Empire Strikes Back, so if I'm 9 in Star Wars, I'm 12 at Empire Strikes Back, and I was like, wait, that's all they did with him? He right. And then I had to wait me more years to see him, quite frankly, die like a bitch on that. And you go, wait a second, okay? But it did not change my love of Boba Fett. And now, cut to you and me, we're watching The Mandalorian last year blow up. And that is a result of everything that occurred when Kenner put that out. And sometimes cool can get you through all the craziness. Because you're like, man, on film, he sucked. But in my mind, it's one of those like, this isn't how I saw this working out, okay? Excuse the entire Liefeld family coming down the stairs in the back. But the yes, everyone's waking up at the house. So the thing is, so Snake Eyes is again then my cool, like I already mentioned, this guy has a katana and a pistol. Whoa, this merging of swordsman and assassin and gunman. And I'm going to tell you right now, when I needed Deadpool, again, that is the model that I looked for. And so when they asked me to do Snake Eyes, of course I'm going to. I mean, they literally asked me, would you do Snake Eyes? They wanted me to do Snake Eyes. They felt that he was the most commercial. Obviously, I'm not going to argue with them. He's really the only character that I felt I could build a story around. So when you ask, and I've given you the 20-minute version, the Snake Eyes is a super dynamic visual. And look, the great thing is I've got a bunch of my fans who have never bought a G.I. Joe comic before converging on G.I. Joe fans who are buying a G.I. Joe product that they are accustomed to. Both worlds are meeting, and maybe G.I. Joe fans are encountering Rob Liefeld. My fans are encountering Snake Eyes. I've read the mail. I've read the responses, and people are like, wow, Snake Eyes is an awesome character. And he is. He's such an amazing visual. And then you've got the component that he doesn't speak. So you have to work a little extra hard. You have to work harder to navigate a story where you're going to dedicate 27 pages, as we did in issue 1, where he is not speaking.
Okay. All right. Wow. There you go. Like, I love that. I love that. Oh, hold on. Rob Green here. I forgot to mention we have the live chat open, and Rob Green saying Deadpool makes a lot more sense now.
There you go.
There he does. Go. Yeah. I actually didn't realize that. Someone we fielded some questions in the audience, and one of the people who responded was like, "Oh, can Rob talk about how Deadpool inspired Snake Eyes inspired Deadpool?" And I was like, "That's not." And I was like, "That's not true."
I've always look, the thing is, I already had my big, strong, straight man, okay? He had succeeded beyond my wildest imaginations. New Mutants 98 was when they said, Rob, this is what you've been building towards. This is what we told you when you got hired. You're going to take over the book. You're going to do full story, full art. And I knew that I had a tough act to follow, given that Cable had been so overwhelmingly successful. So I needed to introduce a counter to him. And Deadpool was the perfect foil. And I wanted a character who would walk in and casually drop the entire team, including Cable. And the joke was, in the last panel, he gets dropped by this new character named Domino. And if you followed the saga, you knew 10 issues into X-Force that was a very planned arrival, that Domino was specifically supposed to arrive that day. It was all kind of staged to get her into the house, because it wasn't the Domino we told you Domino was, even though you were meeting Domino for the first time. So how would you know? But I was raised on soap operas. My mom and my sister watched a whole hell of a lot of soap operas. I watched them with them. And I got the knack of twists and turns and big cliffhangers and reveals. So Deadpool and Domino and Gideon in 98 is me going, well, one of these is going to stick. Now, honestly, they were all three extremely popular. Two of them stuck big. Domino and Deadpool stuck big time. But yeah, Deadpool, I needed my foil. And so when I pitched him to Marvel, literally, and all of them have backed me up for years. I said, look, I need Spider-Man with guns and swords. That's kind of what I'm going for here. And guns and swords to me is Snake Eyes. But Spider-Man, when I grew up, had the wisecracks and made jokes and was a total smartass when you encountered him or when he would encounter the criminals. And you have to understand, I was trying to give people something they weren't getting at the time, because if you go back to 1990, 1991, everybody had been bit by the Frank Miller Dark Knight. Everybody had to be grim, including Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man. He was trying to emulate Frank Miller, the darkness. And I mean, you had voodoo priests, trying to steal Spider-Man's soul, and Mary Jane is dancing all night long. And is their marriage going to last? And Peter's broke and he can't make rent. And, it was, and even the amount of shadows and kind of just dark renderings that Todd would do. Spider-Man was no longer a guy who was making funny quips in his own comic. He was running for his life and terrified of, Kraven, who is rising from the grave with half his head blown off. I mean, that was really funny and weird. So I think there'd be I figured this was the best time to slip Deadpool into the mix, given that maybe he could facilitate part of that original Stan Lee Spider-Man aspect that had been missing for so long. And like I tell you, man, the mail on New Mutants 98, they told me that it was the biggest mail they had gotten on a new character in over like 16 years. It was probably the biggest since Wolverine. So I was extremely excited, and it's taken me on some great journeys.
Nice. So actually, let's jump back to Snake Eyes Dead Game real quick.
Yeah.
What is the Dead Game? Like, can you just give us the setting for this? What's the deal here?
The Dead Game is the ritual brought about by the bearer of the Sword of the Dead, or as we call it, the Dead Sword. Our bad guy is a real nasty Dark Lord. Not to give too much away, but very much sired and raised in the dark arts, mystical rituals, magic, wizardry. And this, he comes from an Eastern culture like Snake Eyes came from, and used the dead sword in a very, very ancient age to try and dominate the world and take over the world. And what the dead sword does when submitted to the ritual of the Dead Game, it raises all the dead and gives you an army of the dead. So if grandma is in the grave, or my beloved father who has been in the grave for many years, they will rise and fight against you. They are summoned immediately by the Sword of the Dead, and we're going to investigate some of the rituals and the mysticism behind that. Kerrigan is our bad guy who is raised from the dead. First, you got to raise your bad guy who's been trapped for what feels like an eternity. And in issue 1, Snake Eyes races against the clock to keep that from happening, cannot prevent it, and Kerrigan gets away with the cult of followers that gathered to raise him. In issue 2, we are introducing a female, again, somebody I had to get some clearance on, named Olympia, who is very much a badass and has direct ties to Kerrigan and, as it turns out, to Snake Eyes. So if you thought that what we started with issue 1 was entertaining on any level, we have not revealed Olympia yet, but she is going to just, I think, thrill the readership. Again, I wanted to bring a lot of new stuff to Snake Eyes Dead Game, from the Dead Game, the Sword of the Dead, Kerrigan, and now Olympia. And then just as I did it, I'm going to tell you something that worked out really well for me. I started this by telling you about my obsession with G.I. Joe, the Kung Fu Grip, and that's what it says on the box.
Yeah, it does.
One second. You know,
go for it.
Here I am. I'm scooting around.
I love it.
I'm coming back. Okay, so here we have.
Oh wow.
Kung Fu Grip. Okay, so I don't want to hear like I'm doing or saying something wrong. This is on the marketing, and he was our surprise guest star in the first issue of Dead Game. He is kind of the character in the first 10 pages. Snake Eyes, there he is breaking out.
I love that.
So we I was like, is anybody past 1974 gonna give two craps about this guy? And fortunately, people, the old dudes like myself, I'm 52, almost 53. The old dudes showed up. They were thrilled. They were excited. They're like, whoa, Joe Colton. And I drew him on model, man. I guess before he hasn't always looked on model, but dude, I mean, again, I brought my man. I brought my main man, okay? And there is much more of that in issue 2. There is a character that was around the same time as this that I have had the best time. He is, I mean, we're talking deep cut. But when people, again, the old crew see him, now the new crew are going to go, who's this guy? He never fought Snake Eyes. I think maybe in my research he appeared for a couple panels in Forgotten Tales, but I am giving this other character a giant platform. And totally different setting. Issue 2, we are in the jungles. You showed the cover to issue 2, one of the covers that shows you the jungle setting. We are deep in the jungles, on the mission to try and stop our bad guy and locate the Sword of the Dead before he can get to it. Scarlet is alongside. Snake Eyes, I don't want to give too much. They get the drop. A couple characters get the drop on them. Look, here's the deal. Comic books, when I was growing up, the comic books that I fell in love with, they moved. They moved.
Yeah.
It was part of Stan's design that Marvel Comics moved. To me, Marvel always moved more than any other comics. Now, I got to be honest, I look at a lot of the comics on the rack. They are talk. I will talk to you. Yeah, you will be talked to. I will talk some more. Talk. People forgot how to swing and throw punches, man. Like, there's a reason we have these things called splash pages. You're supposed to splash. Everyone's forgotten to splash. Anyway, now I have a great team on Snake Eyes. Chad Bowers. I worked with him on Deadpool, Bad Blood. I love working with guys. I've had great guys who script over my stories, from Jeff Loeb to the publisher of Image Comics. Started out scripting my stories, Eric Stevenson. And Chad Bowers we just have such a great rapport. And I thought that the script and the dialogue that he put on the first issue just made that book sing. Issue 2 is more the same. This is great. The first press I've done on Snake Eyes since it dropped a couple weeks ago. And because I wanted to lay low for a couple weeks, just let it sit. But now we're getting ready to come out, and I'm going to tell you, issue 2 has a lot of surprises. Do not sleep on Snake Eyes.
I love it. Now, actually, here's a question. There's tons of reference material for Snake Eyes, right? I mean, like, are you actually posing the action figures and coming up with drawings, or are you shooting from the hip entirely when you're putting the comic together?
There are. I have so many. I have like about 15 Snake Eyes action figures. I think the new one, the new deluxe one, is by far the best. There is one right. Man, how do I get there? There's one right. Well, right over here. Where's my finger? Right above. There's one right there. You can see on screen. He's up against the wall. But there is and the other ones, there's about 6 others that you can't see. They've all fallen. They're all on top of each other. But no, I like having them around. But no, I don't have time to pose them. But I did go with one just kind of mainstream visual. I do want to in issues 3, 4, and 5. It'll probably be 4 and 5 because 2 and 3 kind of butt up against each other. I'm going to put different gear because, again, he's had everything from trench coats to fatigue pants over his kind of rubber suit. So yeah, I know I'm going to play with some different looks. I love that visor. I know people like the throwback goggles. If I can pull that off, I'll try. That visor is iconic. He is. There it is. Oh baby, he's right behind me. I can go grab that. Oh, what a great figure. They outdid themselves. Hasbro they crush it. They are so
Is that
good.
the deluxe one? That's the deluxe one,
Yeah,
right there.
that's the deluxe one. Yeah.
Oh, okay, nice.
It's so funny. I go to these collectors places around here, and they're like, well, I'm not really thrilled that this figure is 6 inches. I'm like, okay, thank you. I have 3 of them. Let me move beyond you and I'll take them all. If you're not happy with these figures, oh my gosh, sometimes you just butt up against those kind of old school, like it has to be a 3-inch figure or I'm not happy. Okay, see ya. Life's moved on. So should you. It's the best part of having kids. They've taught me how to be, fluid. Because they all have their different interests. And honestly, they have kept me very young, because I can't rely on my own tastes and instincts. I have to follow theirs as well. So it's fun. Yeah. But like I said, those new G.I. Joe figures are fantastic. Hasbro, hats off to you. They know how much I dig them.
Absolutely. Actually, so you mentioned Chad Bowers. I actually wanted to ask you, what is your creative process like with Chad? Like, how do you guys work?
It hasn't changed in all these years. I was cleaning out my garage last week, 2 weeks ago. I put up on Facebook, I put up on Twitter my actual yellow legal pad plots that I would write out for New Mutants that I would send to my editor, and then that would be sent on to whoever was scripting my work. And with Chad, I draw the story because I write the story. That's how I then draw the story. When it's complete, and I prefer to give Chad the whole book so he can understand everything I did. I talk over to him as I did in the first issue. I had to walk him through that whole Thor Mjolnir. There's actually a couple of captions. I said, I have written these on the page. They have to stay. This has to be in the book. Then I have to tell him, look, on page 3, you're going to see this flash. Snake Eyes isn't running through the snow anymore. He is being addressed by a general behind a bunch of screens. That's a flashback panel of Snake Eyes getting his instructions as we are understanding, as his instructions are being read to him, are actually narrating the story. So I tell him which points of view the narration needs to come from. And there is a skill to wordsmiths, just like, people say, who is the best Deadpool writer that I've enjoyed or worked with? And I say, the one who writes the funniest jokes, right? I mean, it really comes down to what's the funniest joke? Whoever wrote the funniest joke wins. Ryan Reynolds, you win. Ryan Reynolds, you are the best. You write the funniest jokes, period, end of story. Everyone else is looking up at you. But with Chad, so I lay out the story. I tell him, here's what, sometimes it's like, Chad, there's a 7-page action scene now, but I have to explain to him why. Yes, Chad, our bad guy Kerrigan can manipulate his wrappings, his mummy wrappings, as if they are animated, and he is indeed choking out Snake Eyes at this moment. So it's I just walk it through, and look, on Major X I scripted the whole thing. I felt like that story was so in here that by the time I told somebody, I could have scripted it twice. The function of a scripter for me has always been speeding up the process. But you have to have somebody really good. I can go get my kids to script it. That doesn't mean it's going to be good. They can speed up the process, right?
Right.
My Chad has a great way with words, and the script and the captions and the dialogue shape the pictures and make them even better than they were. And he does that better than anyone I've worked with. And again, I have done numerous work with Jeff Loeb, scripted over so much of my stuff for about 10 years. Eric Stevenson, I have had such good fortune of working with some great guys. So Chad is great. I look to work with him for a long time because he's easy to work with. He doesn't really, he gets what I'm saying. And look, here's the last thing. I'm most proud of my storytelling. What's given me the career I've had is my ability to entertain you on the page, and so much of that is page design, is panel layout, where each figure and close-up falls on a page. If it's done well, you will enjoy it more than if it's not. And there's a lot of not. Think about how many pages are out there every month since I've been a kid. And the cream rises to the top, and I'm fortunate that I've had a 34-year career, and very, very, very thankful. And so much of it is storytelling and page design. And at 53, almost 53, I am still pushing myself. I am not lackadaisical in any way. If I'm going to do a comic, I should do it to the best of my ability. It occurred to me as I was getting the second issue ready to go to press that myself and Erik Larsen are the only original Image founders to continue to draw comic books.
Right. Yeah.
You either have the passion or you don't. And I can't imagine a day I'm not right over there, drawing comic books. It is my passion. I've told my kids I will die not having told, no matter when I die, it could be 30 years from now, I will die not having told hundreds of pages of stories, because this is always going, but there's only so much that I can do.
Right, yeah.
So, it's just Erik Larsen and I are still passionate. We do comics. We love them. It's just weird. Again, as I get older, I look back, I look at, what got everybody to the dance, and it feels like the rest of the guys have kind of semi-retired, but I have that fire still in me. So that's it, man. I'm just excited. I'm excited for Snake Eyes 2, 3, 4, 5, and everything that's to come.
No, I love that. Actually, I'm glad you mentioned that bit about the splash pages, because I think people love to downplay the 90s era and its influence, but it had a major impact, not just on me, but like clearly so many other readers. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it just popped. It just grabbed your attention. You know what I mean?
I won't take up any more time that we have going behind and getting my giant Jack Kirby book that's like, 4 feet tall that Marvel just put out. But all of Jack's 70s work started with a splash page and a double splash page.
Yep.
And eventually you got 2 more. There is a language, and Jack Kirby used to speak of this often. There's a language that we do as comic book producers, artists, graphic, illustrators, that is different. It is different than what any other medium does. It is finite. It's in you manipulate. We manipulated storytellers how you go through those pages, and what's on those pages have a specific beat. I'm putting together a rhythm and a jam and drums. As you go through the book, I mean, with issue 2, I stopped and I said, "Is this exciting enough?" We get one shot to excite you in that slot that we come out, whatever week we come out, July 15th, August 30th, whatever. And so guys like Jack Kirby paved the way and showed us. And in the 90s, what I did, I remember there was a book called Youngblood Strike File, and I said, I'm just going to keep doing, like, can I do all splash pages? Can I do all double page splash pages? Can I still make you, because I can control this, I'm going to push it to the absolute limits. Then I'm going to pull back, because all splash pages will get dull after a while and become monotonous. But it's like you said, man, it seems like there's an editorial style that was part of what made Marvel great in the late 70s, early 80s. It gave you Walt Simonson, Howard Chaykin, John Byrne, Perez, Frank Miller, all of the greats that inspired me and my generation. And so we're just trying to duplicate that. But I think somewhere along the line, the editorial standards changed. I don't know how they changed. I just know that the comic books changed. And if I can say this, while I'm talking to you, it would be the perfect transition. I have a podcast called Robservations. It's on all the whatever platforms, Podbean, iTunes, Spotify. I talk about the history of comic books, my history with comic books as a kid from 1974 to now. I'm just where the Image guys have met each other and our careers are starting. It's a lot of fun. If you like comics and you have some time to kill, check out Robservations.
Nice. Okay, I didn't know that was a thing. I'm gonna have to check that out. I love origin stories. I love just people talking about their relationships with this stuff.
I have done 22 episodes. I started it in the pandemic mainly because I was lonely, and I needed somebody to talk to because everybody else was bored out of their minds. It's hard to get on the phone and talk to your best friends when every day all you're doing is sitting inside. No one's having any life, and all the content that we're, sharing is being mutually shared by everybody. Oh, a trailer! But no one's going out and traveling, and kids are inside. So I got a Blue Yeti, and I started a podcast, and so far so good.
Love it. Actually, no, I love the Yetis too, so I'm with you on that one. So we turned over a bunch of our questions over to the audience, right, over the last couple of days, and so they wanted to throw some stuff at you, see what you had to say. Okay. So let's get some Robservations now. This is a new segment we're going to call Rapid Fire.
Okay.
All right, so let's see what we got here. Who's going to kick off questions first? Kyle, I'm not going to even try to say your last name, Kyle. I apologize. In terms of character development, how do you translate your ideas to the printed page? Do you do multiple character designs and refine them? How do you pick a final design? So what do you think, Rob?
Okay, great question. Yeah, I always do a design on a separate sheet of paper first in my safe, deep, well, it's like a safe within a safe, because my wife said, why aren't these somewhere secure? I have, and I've shared them online, my early Domino, Deadpool, Cable sketches. I did them
wow.
like 8.5 by 11 pages, or in my sketchbook now, of which I have like 50 over the years. I work it out. Then I generally now take a picture of that, and then with an app, I do some paints or colors so I can see how it looks colored. And then once I've done that, I just put it into once I've decided that the color works on the line art, it's in the book.
Nice. What else we got, Johnny? What other questions we have? Zach Goyete. Hopefully I said that right. Since it doesn't seem Marvel will ever publish it, actually, you just talked about this a little bit. Can you talk a little bit about your Kill Raven miniseries with Robert Kirkman?
Yeah, so I 3 episodes ago really deep dive on this subject. Is 2 weeks ago I had an episode called The Untold Tales of Comics on my observations, and it really got that out there in a big way. I do actually believe that Marvel will eventually publish it. It's too commercial of a project. I detail that there was some political. It just seems like there was some personal issues that because after I did Kill Raven with Robert left Marvel, which seemed to kind of tweak them, and all sides have acknowledged this. I stayed there. I then did I did 13 issues of the Deadpool Corps. Prior to that, I did Onslaught Reborn. It's not like they weren't getting work from me. The book is great. It was originally a Commandy pitch, and when Joe Quesada heard it, he said, "Would you do that here? Would you do that with Robert?" We said yes. So 120 pages of Kill Raven are sitting in a drawer. I penciled all of it. Robert wrote all of it. We both were paid in full. So at some point, you figure that they will want to get a return on that. I am bullish in my belief that it will absolutely. Last year, CB Cebulski called me up. He said he was going to make it happen. That didn't happen. But we are still waiting. I am ridiculously positive, but it is a fantastic. I gave some details. I give a lot of details about the story, the bad guy, the villain. I mean, we did this in 2007. And the Infinity Gauntlet was the means with which the Martians had taken over Earth, because Kill Raven, but the Infinity Gauntlet only has 3 gems that are working. It's 2 of them are broken. I mean, how ahead of the time was this? And we kind of referred to it as Kill Raven and the New Avengers. Wolverine is basically a dog that works for the Martians to hunt down strays that escape. And then they find their way into the abandoned Avengers mansion. You see what's happened to Iron Man's armor and some of the weaponry of, like, say, Captain America, Thor's hammer, Hawkeye's bows. It is fantastic. Did I mention
it? Sounds fantastic.
2 issues were even colored. So the deep mystery of why they won't push this forward is, I was told a couple times over the years, no, we're going to do it. But then, no, we decided not to. Why? Why not do it? Right?
Right.
So anyway.
That sounds awesome, actually. Yeah, now I'm very curious about this. Come on, Marvel, make it happen for the fans. Do it for the fans. I think we've got one more question from our audience. Gary Wright, is he ever going to release an art book full of never before seen ideas? That's a good question. Thank you, Gary.
That is great. You know what? I have never produced a retrospective, an art book. I was actually looking at the art of Todd Mcfarlane the other day, trying to get some reference on actually when he broke into comics. I knew he spoke of it in there. And I was looking at this going, man, when this came out 10 years ago, I thought for sure I was going to follow it up. I've never had any compendium, a retrospective. Whenever I do, all that behind the scenes stuff will be there. I just don't have any plans of doing it anytime soon. The way I kind of do it is on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I try and use social media and its reach to put recently, I have a Facebook group, Rob Liefeld Extreme group on Facebook, and people have been seeing unused covers from X-Force and New Mutants and layouts for page designs that you did see. As I said, all my notes from 1990, 91, script notes, story notes, how I broke down all of New Mutants 98 in stick figures. First, I mean, I when I get this stuff, I immediately just take my camera and just take all the pictures and upload it. But eventually, we'll get that all. When it's on social media, I figure it becomes part of the time capsule. It now exists in the cloud, from my garage to the cloud, but which is better than from the garage to the furnace. But
exactly.
I don't think that. But anyway, the thing is, eventually we'll get it printed.
Okay, I love that. I love it. And actually, got one more fan question for you, Rob, and it comes from me because I've always been curious about the Spike Lee Levi commercial.
Yeah.
So, do you still wear Levi's? First of all, do you actually wear them?
Last night, they are my go-to jeans. I love the fit. Yep.
Any fun stories about Spike Lee and the Levi's commercial from back in the day?
Well, again, what people need to understand is MTV was the biggest thing in the world. Young artists like myself would watch it all the time. It was on 24/7 when I would be drawing comics. I was drawing New Mutants at the time, like issue 99, I believe, and they had done 6 Button Your Fly ads, and who knew that they were going to do another set of them? But they put on, like, you had to blink or you'd miss it. It said on MTV. On screen that said, "Do you do an interesting job wearing your Levi's 501s? If you do, call this number."
Oh, okay.
I called it. I hung up. I was actually catching a plane to go to WonderCon that year. I didn't think anything would come of it, but before I walked out the door, I ran. I said, "Hey, my name is Rob Liefeld. I draw comic books in my 501, button fly jeans. I wear these all the time while I make comics and cartoons. You should call me." About 6 weeks later, at 9 o'clock at night, I got a call from Levi's asking if they could come and videotape me for a day to then send footage to the corporate company to see if they'd pick me. They did. They did some what you would call just kind of B-roll of me drawing. They looked at my office. And then they called me back and said I was selected. Spike would be coming out to film me in my office. And I was, what the heck? Spike Lee is coming. It's going to be great. Well, right before, about a week before, they said, "Rob, Spike cannot fly to you. You're going to need to come to Brooklyn, and we're going to book you for 2 days here at his 40 Acres and a Mule production company at their sound stages." And I'm like, "But how are you going to replicate my office?" They're going to go, "We're going to make it look like Fullerton." And to this day, that is exactly. So next day, a guy showed up and took shots of everything, and they took as much out of my office, put it on a truck, drove it to New York. When I got there to shoot and met Mr. Spike Lee, I walked into an area that was replicated. I saw that Hollywood magic, man. I am now in Fullerton, California, in Brooklyn. Okay. The coolest thing is Deadpool 2 got nominated for a Critics' Choice Award. And why this is important to you was Spike was nominated for, help me out, Adam Driver.
The Black Klansman.
Black Klansman. He was nominated. The whole cast was there. So I am there for Deadpool 2 because Fox
that's funny.
Still takes me. And I walked up to Mr. Spike and I said, "Spike Lee, I don't know if you remember me," because he was a really funny guy and knew a lot about comics. He's like, "Yeah, I remember you. What's up?" And I'm like, "Thank you for that commercial. That was so much fun." And I drove home that night going, I'm just so glad that, like, literally, so I created a character named Deadpool. Deadpool becomes movies. They become successful. They get me to the Critics' Choice Awards where I can go thank Mr. Spike Lee for making that, for selecting me and making that killer, awesome commercial. And while we're recording this, because we've gone supersized, we can do this. The funny thing is, because I was so terrified on camera and very nervous, and I think you can pick that up, he turned to interviewing me as a means of finishing the job. They actually wanted me to stand up and start acting out the pages. And I said, I don't do that when I draw. That's you're asking me to be you're now asking me to be an actor. And I'm a cartoonist. I thought I was just going to draw. So I think it was something that the reps from Levi's were really pushing. But Spike said, "Look, I got this. I know how to make this work." And so he shot it. They cut it. They sent the commercial to Marvel. And my buddies at Marvel all called me, and I kid you not, they're like, "You look ridiculous. you come off like an idiot. You are the laughing stock. And I said, send it to me. Oh, because I have a great sense of humor. That is my exact office in Fullerton replicated. Even the lighting through this. Oh, it's a lamp. It's a lamp making it look like the sun's out. Anyway, so I said, send it to me because Levi's had to get clearance on the characters. Obviously, look at how much free advertising I gave Marvel that year.
Yeah.
That played for 4 cycles. 4 cycles. Each cycle is 3 months. It played for 16 months. That ad did.
Yeah.
And probably the best thing Marvel ever did was clear that advertising. But I got it, and when I watched it, I go, "Oh, people will love this." I don't know. I don't know what the Marvel guys thought. Like, I'm gonna make this commercial and look cool. No, being uncool is cool. And looking, what you can't get out of that, what you can't escape from that spot, and this is Spike's magic, is the sincerity. That I'm a dork and I make comics, and it translated, and I couldn't have been more thrilled. And like I said, when I saw it, I go, I think this is going to connect. And like I said, it ran, especially during NBA season. That year, that ad was on all the time. But like I said, just looking at it right now, good God, how many millions of free advertising did I get from Marvel Comics? What a fun time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was the first time I was like, wow, comic creators are rock stars. Like, look at that.
Well, they're geeks, and they got on MTV and NBA games 24/7 because of the cool. I mean, look, all of those ads are directed by Spike, and I was just fortunate because of his schedule. I got to go and see his studios, and again, they replicated it all, and I saw the movie magic up close and personal. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love it. Rob, thank you very much for coming out and staying home and hanging out with us here to talk about your Snake Eyes Dead game.
Fist bump through the boom.
Fist bump. I love it. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for having me. It was great talking to you. Stay safe, stay out of trouble.
Absolutely. And guys, Snake Eyes Dead game, like I said earlier, the reprint is going to drop in September. If your local comic shop still has a few copies, you might want to grab it up now. Number 2, of course, is also dropping this month. I think it might have already dropped. No, it hasn't dropped this month yet. But definitely keep an eye out for both. And actually check out Rob's podcast, Robservations. I just learned something new today. I learned quite a few new things today. Thanks for joining us for Comic Talk, guys. We will be back next week with another special guest, and I won't be here, but Ashton or Anna Mia will be. So check it out, and hey guys, I'll see you wrong side at the spinner rack. Catch you later.